In Canada, the average house price has skyrocketed to over $700,000, while wages have barely budged in over a decade. Even renting has become a luxury. Toronto's average monthly rent for a one-bedroom in 2023 hit a staggering $2,600. And it gets worse. A recent survey reveals that half of Canadians are just $200 away from financial disaster. What's behind this alarming crisis, and could it get even worse? Don't go anywhere, as we uncover why living in Canada is no longer a dream for so many, but a nightmare they can't escape. Living in Canada isn't as easy as it seems. Rising living costs, a housing market that feels impossible to break into, and a healthcare system showing its cracks are just the beginning. Throw in unforgiving winters, an unpredictable job market, and government policies that often feel like short-term patches on long-term problems, and it's clear why so many Canadians are fighting just to keep their heads above water. Canada is facing high inflation rates that are making everyday life increasingly expensive for many people. As of spring of 2024, nearly 45% of Canadians say rising prices are making it hard to cover daily expenses. Essentials like groceries, utilities, and fuel are taking a big hit, with grocery costs in particular up a steep 23% in just the last year. This inflation is hitting lower-income households the hardest. For those in the lowest income bracket, nearly 59% report that the rising costs are significantly impacting their ability to afford daily needs. This growing gap between income groups is highlighting the struggles many Canadians face and is putting a spotlight on the need for policies that can help bring relief. For many families, balancing the budget has become more challenging than ever. Essentials that used to be manageable are now a strain, pushing some to make difficult choices just to get by. Without meaningful policy changes, the divide between income groups is likely to deepen, making the cost of living crisis a pressing issue across the country. And while prices have been rising sharply, wages haven't kept up. Many Canadians are seeing their salaries stay the same or grow too slowly to keep up with the increasing costs of living. Recent data shows that wage growth is around 2%, but inflation is running at about 5%. This gap is putting a strain on families and individuals who are struggling to maintain their lifestyle as expenses climb. Younger adults are feeling this wage stagnation more than others. In spring 2024, around 55% of people aged 25 to 44 said that rising prices were significantly affecting their ability to cover daily expenses. This age group is also more likely to experience high levels of financial stress, particularly when it comes to concerns about affording housing. As costs continue to rise, they're finding it harder to balance their budgets and secure a stable financial future. Another challenge Canadians are facing is the growing burden of taxes, which continues to take a toll on their finances. Federal and provincial tax rates keep rising, shrinking disposable income and making it harder for families to manage increasing costs of living. As government spending rises to tackle economic pressures, Canadians are left dealing with higher tax bills while struggling to meet basic needs. In spring of 2024, nearly 38% of Canadians expressed concerns about their ability to afford housing or rent due to the escalating prices. This worry is only made worse by the extra weight of rising taxes, which further reduce the money available to households. The combination of high living costs and increasing taxes is making it even more difficult for families to stay afloat. With each passing day, more Canadians are feeling the squeeze. The higher taxes, alongside climbing housing costs, are putting more financial pressure on families who already have to make tough choices about their spending. Whether it's cutting back on unnecessary expenses or trying to find extra ways to earn money, Canadians are finding it harder to manage their finances. As taxes continue to climb and the cost of living rises, many Canadians are left wondering how much more they can take. The struggle to balance their budget grows more difficult by the day, and the situation shows little sign of improvement. Apart from taxes, the Canadian housing market is infamous for its sky-high prices, especially in major cities like Toronto and Vancouver. As of September 2024, the average price of a home in Canada was around $700,000, reflecting a 2.7% drop from the previous year. While the decrease may seem like a positive shift, it's still far above what most Canadians would consider affordable when compared to historical averages. For many people, particularly first-time homebuyers, the dream of owning a home feels increasingly out of reach. The combination of increasing property prices and high interest rates has created significant barriers to homeownership. A recent report revealed that 81% of new condo rentals in Toronto are losing money each month. This happens because the high costs of running these properties outweigh the rental income they generate, leaving investors and landlords struggling to turn a profit. In cities like Toronto and Vancouver, the dream of homeownership is fading fast for many. Rising interest rates and skyrocketing prices are slamming the door on younger buyers trying to take their first step onto the property ladder. While some cling to hope that the market might cool, the harsh reality is this. For most, owning a home is slipping further out of reach with every passing year. For those who can't afford to buy a home, renting has become just as challenging. Rental prices have soared, with the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Toronto now around $3,400, and in Vancouver, it's even higher at just under $3,800, a rise of 6 to 9% over the past year alone. This sharp increase has made it more difficult for renters to find affordable options, especially with the limited availability of rental units. Many individuals and families are being pushed into unstable living situations, scrambling to find places that won't break the bank. The Canadian rental market has experienced some fluctuations recently, but unfortunately, there's little hope for immediate relief. The demand for rental properties continues to outpace supply, keeping prices high. In response, many renters have started looking at suburban areas where rents tend to be lower. However, even these areas are not immune to the ongoing inflationary pressures, which are still driving up costs across the country. As affordable rental units disappear in major cities and suburban areas struggle to keep up, Canadians are caught in a housing crisis that feels impossible to escape. Foreign investment has played a major role in driving up real estate prices in Canada. Wealthy foreign buyers often purchase properties as investments or vacation homes, inflating demand and raising prices beyond what local residents can afford. In Toronto and Vancouver, foreign capital is fueling a housing market already out of control, pricing out local buyers and turning homeownership into a battle they can't win. This results in a growing divide between those who can afford a home and those who can only dream of one. With foreign investors purchasing properties at higher prices, the competition for available homes becomes even more intense, further pushing the prices upwards. In response to the rising concerns, some municipalities have started implementing measures aimed at curbing foreign ownership of Canadian real estate. These regulations, such as taxes on foreign buyers or restrictions on foreign investment, have been introduced to protect the interests of local buyers and ease the pressure on the housing market. However, these efforts have had mixed results. Demand for real estate remains high, and despite regulatory attempts, prices continue to rise. As foreign investment continues to play a significant role in the housing market, the affordability crisis for local buyers only worsens, leaving many Canadians struggling to secure a home of their own. The growing trend of suburban living has also led to increased traffic congestion. Longer commutes are now a daily part of life for many, leading to increased transportation costs and more time spent traveling. More people are commuting into city centers for work, adding to the already heavy traffic. At the same time, those who have moved to the outskirts are trying to balance their need for affordable housing with the realities of longer travel times. This creates a cycle where people are constantly battling traffic spending more money on transportation and sacrificing time with family and other important activities. As a result, household budgets are stretched even further, and quality of life can suffer. Ultimately, the push towards suburban areas in search of affordable housing may be a temporary solution, but it brings its own set of problems. Along with the challenges in the housing market, accessing healthcare services in Canada has become an increasingly difficult task for many citizens. Waiting times for specialists and essential care continue to worsen. In 2023, around 5.4 million Canadians, about 17% of the population, reported not having access to a regular healthcare provider. This issue, which was exacerbated during the COVID-19 pandemic, has persisted well into 2024. The impact of this shortage of healthcare access is far-reaching, as individuals are forced to delay necessary medical attention, leading to a deterioration in their health outcomes. This situation highlights the systemic inefficiencies that plague Canada's healthcare system, which, despite being publicly funded, struggles to meet the growing demand for services. One of the key factors contributing to these long wait times is the shortage of healthcare professionals. Many regions, particularly rural and remote areas, face significant gaps in staffing levels. These shortages are the result of an aging healthcare workforce and a lack of adequate training programs for new entrants into the field. The problem is then compounded by the fact that fewer young people are pursuing careers in healthcare due to the demanding nature of the work and the low levels of job satisfaction. As a result, Canadians seeking treatment often face longer waits for appointments, tests, and procedures, adding to the frustration and anxiety surrounding the healthcare system. In addition to the staff shortages, recent studies have revealed another alarming issue. Nearly 40% of healthcare workers are considering leaving their positions. This is primarily due to burnout, which has been significantly worsened by the stresses of the COVID-19 pandemic. Frontline workers have faced overwhelming pressure for years, working long hours in challenging conditions, and many are reaching a breaking point. This attrition of healthcare professionals only intensifies the shortages, making it even harder for Canadians to access timely medical care. Meanwhile, there is growing concern about the future of Canada's healthcare system, particularly the possibility of privatization. Canadians have long relied on a publicly funded healthcare system that offers services based on need rather than the ability to pay. With public funding stretched thin by an aging population and soaring rates of chronic diseases, the cracks in Canada's healthcare system are becoming impossible to ignore. As pressure mounts, conversations about privatizing healthcare are gaining traction, sparking fierce debates about the future of care in the country. Some believe that privatization could help reduce wait times and improve access to services. But there is significant opposition from many Canadians who fear that such a move would lead to higher costs for patients and reduce access for low-income individuals who rely on government-funded services. A move toward privatization would create a two-tier system. Those who can afford private care would have quicker access to medical services, while others would be left waiting longer for treatment. The idea of creating a system where healthcare services are divided along income lines is deeply concerning. Many see it as a threat to the equity and fairness that the public healthcare system is designed to ensure. Canadians have long taken pride in their healthcare system, which is based on the principle of universal access to necessary medical services, regardless of one's financial situation. In the midst of these debates, the healthcare system continues to face mounting pressure. The aging population means that there are more people requiring healthcare services, and this trend is expected to continue for years to come. Chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease, and mental health conditions are surging, piling even more pressure onto an already overstretched healthcare system. With care costs rising and critical investments in infrastructure, staffing, and training lagging behind, it's hard to see how the system can cope with the increasing demand. Canadians face a tough reality. Long wait times and limited access to care aren't going away anytime soon. The stakes couldn't be higher. The future of healthcare in Canada will depend on making transformative changes that protect the core values of fairness, equity, and universal access. Values Canadians are determined to preserve. Canada's harsh climate and growing environmental challenges are also contributing to the already difficult financial circumstances many Canadians face today. Extreme weather conditions such as harsh winters and increasing heat waves have become more common due to the effects of climate change. These conditions not only disrupt daily life, but also place significant financial strain on households, particularly when it comes to heating, cooling, and protecting homes from damage. Canada is no stranger to extreme weather, with long, cold winters in many parts of the country and hotter, longer summers. As climate change accelerates, these weather patterns are becoming more frequent and more intense. Winters in Canada can be brutally cold, driving up heating costs for homes. At the same time, summers bring heat waves, which increase the demand for cooling systems. This results in high electricity bills, as air conditioners and heating systems run more frequently to maintain comfortable living environments. Over the past several years, utility bills related to heating and cooling have risen substantially. This increase is forcing many Canadians to make tough choices, whether to pay their utility bills or buy essential goods for their families. For many, this situation highlights the inescapable link between the country's climate and the financial challenges they face. But the strain of extreme weather doesn't end with heating and cooling costs. Canada is also seeing the effects of climate change through devastating events like wildfires and floods. These disasters put communities and infrastructure at risk, leaving Canadians to deal with the aftermath. Wildfires have been increasing in frequency and severity, causing destruction to homes and damaging the environment. Floods, often caused by heavy rain or rapid snowmelt, are also becoming more common. These natural disasters not only cause significant property damage, but also disrupt local economies. When crops are damaged by flooding or drought, food prices increase, putting additional pressure on household budgets. As these extreme weather events become more frequent, the cost of rebuilding and repairing damage grows. The expense of recovery falls on both homeowners and local governments, adding to the financial burden on communities. Insurance premiums have also risen significantly as insurance companies factor in the increased risk of natural disasters. Homeowners, especially those living in high-risk areas, are seeing their premiums go up, making it harder to afford insurance and leaving them vulnerable to the financial fallout of a disaster. This is a problem that doesn't just affect homeowners. Renters, too, are feeling the effects of climate change. Renters in areas prone to extreme weather may face higher utility bills as landlords adjust rental prices to account for their increased insurance premiums or higher maintenance cost for properties built to withstand harsher conditions. For those who do own their homes, adapting to the changing climate comes with its own set of financial challenges. Many Canadians are being forced to invest in climate-resilient measures, such as better insulation, stronger roofing, or flood barriers in order to protect their homes from extreme weather events. However, these adaptations can be costly, often putting homeownership further out of reach for low-income families. The cost of retrofitting homes to withstand extreme conditions is growing, and now many households are finding themselves in a difficult position, struggling to cover the necessary expenses while managing rising utility costs. The situation is even more challenging for Canadians living in rural and northern regions, where extreme weather is more common. In these areas, the cost of climate adaptation can be prohibitively high, leaving communities vulnerable to the worst impacts of climate change. While governments may offer funding or incentives to support these efforts, the scale of the problem requires more substantial and widespread support. Without broader, more accessible solutions, many Canadians will continue to face the heavy financial burden of climate change. Moving on, the Canadian job market is currently experiencing several challenges that are contributing to economic instability for many workers. One of the most notable trends is the increasing job insecurity faced by workers across various sectors. More Canadians are finding themselves in contract or gig economy positions, which do not provide the same level of job security or benefits that traditional full-time roles once did. This shift is leaving many individuals without health benefits, retirement plans, or other essential workplace protections, leading to greater financial instability. Nearly 30% of Canadian workers are now employed under non-standard arrangements, such as temporary contracts or freelance work. This figure highlights the changing nature of the labor market, where the rise of digital platforms and the gig economy has transformed how work is structured. While these types of roles can offer flexibility, they often come at the cost of job security, consistent income, and benefits that were once standard in full-time employment. For many workers, this has created a precarious situation where financial stability is harder to achieve and long-term career planning is more challenging. In addition to job insecurity, many new immigrants to Canada face significant difficulties in securing employment that matches their skills and qualifications. Foreign credentials are not always recognized within Canada's labor market, which leads to underemployment for many highly qualified individuals. Despite possessing relevant education and experience, many immigrants are forced to take jobs that do not align with their professional backgrounds. A recent survey found that 55% of newcomers reported feeling frustrated by their inability to find work that utilizes their full skill set. This underemployment not only affects their personal financial situations, but also represents a lost opportunity for the Canadian economy. Another significant barrier to economic stability for young Canadians is the rising cost of education. Over the past few years, tuition fees for both undergraduate and graduate programs have continued to rise sharply, creating substantial financial burdens for students. The average undergraduate tuition fee in Canada now exceeds $7,000 annually, which is a heavy cost for many students, especially those from lower-income families. These rising costs often force students to take on large amounts of debt before even entering the workforce. Many young Canadians find themselves in lower-paying jobs just to cover the student loans they accumulated during their studies. This then further affects their ability to save for the future or invest in their personal development. The rising cost of education and student debt has a long-term impact on young Canadians' financial well-being. With debt payments looming over them, graduates are often forced to delay important life milestones, such as buying a home or starting a family. This financial strain can affect mental health and overall quality of life. The pressure of student loans can push graduates towards accepting jobs they're overqualified for, simply to make ends meet. Moreover, the overall job market is evolving in ways that make it more difficult for individuals to achieve job security. Many traditional industries are shrinking or undergoing automation, displacing workers who once relied on these positions for stable incomes. At the same time, new industries are emerging, but they often require specialized skills that not everyone possesses. This has created a mismatch between the skills workers have and the jobs that are available. For instance, while technology-related jobs are growing, there's a significant gap in the workforce's ability to meet the demand for these roles due to the rapid pace of technological advancements. This mismatch contributes to underemployment, where workers are unable to find jobs that match their qualifications and skill levels. In response to these challenges, many Canadians are seeking opportunities for upskilling and reskilling to meet the demands of a changing economy. However, accessing these opportunities can be expensive and time-consuming. Moreover, the financial burden of ongoing education and training further exacerbates the challenges faced by individuals in an already difficult economic environment. Overall, the Canadian job market is undergoing significant changes that are making it harder for workers to achieve financial stability. Job insecurity, the mismatch of skills, and the rising cost of education are just a few of the factors contributing to this growing problem. As the job market continues to evolve, it's crucial that policies be implemented to address these challenges and support workers in navigating the complexities of the modern labor landscape. Without these efforts, many Canadians will continue to face economic uncertainty, limiting their ability to thrive in both their personal and professional lives. In addition to the challenges related to housing and healthcare, transportation and commuting woes have become a growing concern for many Canadians. One of the major issues is the lack of efficient public transportation, especially in smaller cities, which forces many residents to rely heavily on personal vehicles. This increased reliance contributes to traffic congestion, making commute times longer and more frustrating. As a result, Canadians are spending more time in traffic, which leads to lost productivity and higher fuel expenses. A recent study reveals a growing frustration among commuters. Nearly 60% say local public transit inefficiencies like constant delays and cancellations are wreaking havoc on their daily routines. In larger metropolitan areas, the situation is even more pronounced. Cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal continue to struggle with growing traffic volumes, largely driven by population growth and a lack of adequate infrastructure investments. These increased traffic volumes result in longer commute times, further exacerbating stress and frustration for residents. With traffic systems that were not designed to handle such growth, many Canadians are faced with an inefficient and often unreliable commute, which impacts their quality of life. Additionally, the rising cost of vehicle ownership is another burden Canadians have to face. Insurance rates and fuel costs have increased sharply, making it harder for families to manage these expenses. Recent reports show that the average monthly car payment has risen nearly 15% since last year. These rising costs are pushing many to reconsider their transportation options, but with limited public transit alternatives, the challenges persist. Canada's current challenges can't be discussed without addressing a major source of frustration: criticisms of how the government is handling the housing crisis and broader economic issues. For many citizens, the lack of bold, effective action feels like a failure to tackle the nation's most pressing problems head-on. Recent polls reveal that nearly 70% of Canadians believe current policies fail to adequately address pressing concerns related to affordability and accessibility of essential services. This growing dissatisfaction reflects a broader sentiment of disillusionment among the public regarding the government's ability to effectively tackle these problems. Many feel that policies are either poorly designed or not properly executed, leading to persistent struggles for average Canadians. A key issue driving this dissatisfaction is the perceived lack of transparency in government decision-making. Many people feel that decisions are being made behind closed doors without enough input from the communities that are the most affected. This sense of exclusion from the policymaking process has led to widespread feelings of disenfranchisement. Citizens are increasingly frustrated with what they view as an opaque and disconnected political system that doesn't reflect their needs or priorities. For many, this has eroded trust in the effectiveness of the government and fostered a sense of alienation. Another pressing concern in Canada is the impact of high taxation levels and burdensome regulations on small businesses and individuals. Many entrepreneurs report feeling overwhelmed by the complex and often costly regulations that stifle their ability to grow. Nearly 48% of entrepreneurs surveyed indicated that regulatory hurdles were hindering their potential for business expansion. High taxes further complicate the financial stability of individuals and businesses, limiting disposable income and discouraging investment. This regulatory environment has made it more difficult for small businesses to succeed, which in turn affects job creation and overall economic growth. The tension between high taxation and the need for economic stability is a delicate balancing act for governments, especially as they seek to fund necessary public services. As the cost of living rises, including housing and healthcare, governments face increasing pressure to provide financial support for citizens. However, they must also generate sufficient revenue to maintain these services. Striking the right balance between taxation and regulation is crucial for fostering an environment that promotes sustainable growth while also ensuring that people's basic needs are met. In recent years, the political climate in Canada has become more polarized, exacerbating these challenges. Political division has made it harder for the government to address vital issues such as housing affordability and healthcare accessibility effectively. The growing division in Canada's political system has created a stalemate, where winning arguments takes priority over solving problems. For many, it feels like partisan battles are leaving the country's most pressing issues stuck on the sidelines. Nearly 65% of survey respondents expressed frustration with the political system, feeling that their representatives do not adequately reflect their interests. Many believe that the system is just broken, and that meaningful reforms are necessary to restore faith in democracy. This political polarization has far-reaching implications for the future of Canadian governance. With Canada grappling with climate change, economic inequality, and an aging population, the stakes have never been higher. Now more than ever, the government must craft policies that are both practical and widely supported, solutions that unite citizens and rise to the complexity of the challenges ahead. However, in today's highly polarized environment, finding common ground on these critical issues is becoming increasingly difficult. The growing divide between different political factions also impacts the ability to implement long-term strategies for addressing Canada's biggest challenges. Housing, healthcare, job security, these are the issues Canadians can't afford to ignore. But decades of systemic challenges are now meeting a political landscape gridlocked by division and a refusal to compromise. Without unity, the problems only grow larger and solutions remain out of reach. With Canadians feeling disconnected from the political process, there is a growing demand for a shift toward more inclusive, transparent, and effective governance. Citizens want to see a government that is responsive to their needs, willing to listen, and capable of acting in their best interests. Canadians are calling for greater transparency, more equitable tax policies, and a more cooperative political landscape. Without these changes, it will be difficult to address the country's most significant challenges and build a more stable, prosperous future for all. As the political divide continues to widen, Canadians must find ways to bridge this gap and create a system that truly serves the needs of the people. Tackling these issues head-on is necessary if Canada is to offer a better quality of life for all of its citizens. While the current reality may seem overwhelming, there is hope that through strategic, long-term solutions, a brighter future can be created. By addressing these challenges collectively, there's potential for real, positive change in the years to come. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see more videos like this, then please consider subscribing and turn on notifications. It really does make a difference. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time on MatPack.